Say that, and we have one speaker to go. Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the mixed ownership model bill, which of course is sponsored by the State-Owned Enterprises Minister Tony Weil. It is set down for its second reading, and I'd have to say there's been a great deal of willful misinformation and alarmist rhetoric that we've heard this afternoon from across the other side of the House. And we've also seen it in the grounds of Parliament. Earlier this afternoon, I noted there were a couple of dozen people holding out placards, "New Zealand is not for sale." I agree with them. It's not for sale. That was what Labor did in the 80s and 90s. That is not at all what we are about. We heard earlier the former Member of Parliament for Waimakariri, who's on the phone at the moment, we heard him talk about having political regrets, how his party has learned from their former mistakes. Well, I doubt that somehow. I doubt whether he's learned very much at all. Because unlike Labor through the 80s and 90s, this was not... He never listens. Paper he is. But unlike Labor, we have looked carefully at legislation. We did not sneak it in. On the 26th of January last year, our Prime Minister, John Key, outlined the mixed ownership model. We campaigned on it. We went into detail on it. I'm going to go into a bit more detail on it in a few moments because I think it has been lost in a lot of the misinformation and stuff and nonsense we've heard today. But we have a mandate, and that has been questioned by some people in this House. Our mandate is called Election 2011. There were a lot of people who listened to what we were saying about the mixed ownership model because we were upfront about it, and they decided that we were right and they voted for us. We got 47% of the party vote, the most ever. Labor, on the other hand, dug up a whole lot of old signs, no asset sales. They campaigned hard on that. What did they get? The worst result ever. So what does that tell them? Not very much, actually, because they're not listening to it. But in fact, they should have learned from their mistakes. They absolutely have not. In the years I was on Morning Report and working for National Radio, I saw Phil Goff, all the others come into the studio day after day. The phrase that they're selling off the family silver to pay for the daily groceries was invented for what Labor did. And a lot of them are still there. They were the architects of the old misfortune, and they continue to plague the Labor government of today, which is why they lurk in such low numbers on the opposing side of the House. We are committed to the mixed ownership model because it is needed. As we heard earlier today from Ministers Joyce and Foss, it is all about the debt. Our partial share float, where the government maintains a majority shareholding, is essential if we want to control our out-of-control debt. We don't want debt for New Zealand. Unlike the others, we don't want to borrow. We are not prepared to put future generations of New Zealanders under the yoke of debt that Labor has consigned us to. Why expose us to it? The mixed ownership model has many advantages, and I will recap on them because there has been a lot of misinformation. So let's look at it. The mixed ownership model does provide much needed money to invest through the Future Investment Fund. I'll go into that in a bit more detail later, but we don't need to borrow more to invest in things that we need in this country. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind in these difficult financial times. There will be huge benefits to New Zealand's capital markets. We need more attractive investment opportunities for people in our capital markets because they are a bit moribund. So the mixed ownership model will provide more opportunities for investors. The other thing is we are keeping control of the assets. Yes, it's the C word. Control. We are keeping 51% control, and we're getting in the dividends. Now, I was getting a bit close to the wind with the C word, but it is about control. It's not a word that they know a lot about when it comes to fiscal responsibility, but we're well across it. These mixed ownership model companies that we're proposing to partially float are companies, they're businesses. They will benefit from operating under a more commercial model. What's a government doing in the day-to-day running and the minutiae of electricity companies? If you get other people involved, there will be more money that we as a government don't need to borrow. They can invest and grow these companies. There is a lot of good things to come from the discipline and scrutiny of the model that we have proposed. They can get access to capital and to grow and expand without us needing to borrow it. Kiwi owned, that's a very important part of this. We are committed to keeping a very strong Kiwi ownership in these companies because we think it's important. So important that we've set clear targets and guidelines around it. 85 to 90% of Kiwis' ownership will be there at the time of the offer. That's what we're looking at. We will also have very strict ownership limits, and those are going to be enshrined in legislation. There will be a 10% share cap. No other investor, apart from the government, of course, who retains 51%, will be able to own more than 10% of the company. There are a lot of New Zealand companies that would like to get involved. Iwi, super funds, instead of investing their money overseas in farms in Canada or Tasmania, they will be able to invest in strengthening the future of good New Zealand companies, and I think they are clamouring to invest. And Kiwis who apply for shares will be at the front of the queue. So here's a question. Would you rather that dividends were paid to New Zealanders? Or would you rather that we paid interest to overseas debtors? What do you think? They would go for the debt every time because that's the limited perspective they bring to this. The Future Investment Fund, which again was very well signalled, is something that we've already earmarked. And just consider for a moment how far $33.8 million is going to go towards modernising and transforming New Zealand schools. $88.1 million is going into the health sector. That's going to develop hospitals, and again, we won't need to borrow to do that. $250 million towards Kiwi Rail turnaround plan. The Greens are always banging on about how much they hate roads. We've got New Zealand Rail benefiting. These are all good things. Up to $400 million is going to be used as equity investment in irrigation projects that will help increase our productivity, grow our rural economy and create jobs. Measures, of course, that the other side of the House loathe and abominate. And there's another $80 million that we've earmarked under the Future Investment Fund, which will go towards transforming the Industrial Research Limited into an Advanced Technology Institute. Because, again, investing in the future of the way that we're looking at our rolling out the broadband, the high-tech HQ, which is part of the vision that we have for New Zealand, investing in our future. They've also said, in closing, that we have rushed this through. I absolutely reject that notion. 1,490 submissions. We heard 124 of them. We were here in Wellington hearing them. We went to Christchurch and we went to Auckland. Yes, there were a lot of Labour people, a lot of Green people who submitted. That's what they did. They were motivated to do it. The language was pretty similar. They said their bit. And then we had the Chambers of Commerce. And some people have disputed that Chamber of Commerce actually represent people. They were absolutely in favour of the mixed ownership model, and there are a lot of them. In Auckland alone, 20,000 small businesses are represented. And I spoke to Michael Barnett, who actually came and submitted, and he said that the vast majority of his members were absolutely in favour. So it is not rushed. We have the mandate that it is known as the 2011 election, and this is essential for our future, and it makes sound economic sense, and I commend it to the House.
The debate having concluded, I will now put the questions. And the first question is that the amendments recommended by the Finance and Expenditure Committee by majority be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote. The clerk order. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party.
14 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Māori Party.
2 votes opposed.
Mana.
1 opposed.
Act New Zealand.
1 in favour.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Order. The ayes are 61, the noes are 59. The motion is agreed to. The question now is order. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party.
14 opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Māori Party.
2 votes opposed.
Mana.
1 opposed.
Act New Zealand.
1 in favour.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Any other votes?
The ayes are 61, the noes are 59. The motion is agreed to.
Mixed Ownership Model Bill, second reading.
This bill is set down for committee stage next sitting day. Call now on Government Order of the Day number 2.